Dude, that's awesome. That's like Nardwar level. Temporary animation podcast, folks. It's coming in hot.
Welcome everybody to the Temp podcast. This is the inaugural show, so hopefully we can do a lot more of these too. We're joined today by the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Trav Hiilldinbrend. You may know him from Collective Dreams, as well as also his work with KRTU, as well as a slew of other bands throughout the city and his illustrious 10-plus year career at the bare minimum. How's it going, Trav? How you doing today?
I'm good, man. First of all, I just want to say I'm really excited about all the work that you and the rest of the folks are doing at Temporary Animation Records. So I'm stoked to be tuning into the podcast every week, or however, I don't know, whenever it comes out.
That's the goal. That's the goal, definitely, man. Get it once a week at least.
Nice. And honored to be the first guest. So thank you for having me.
Awesome, man. So let's get it started now. Let's talk. So we're going to do a little bit of Collective Dreams, but I also want to talk about you as well, not just Collective, but let's start on Collective. So Collective Dreams is an instrumental band, though you've had some, points with vocalists. Personally, shout out Mikey from Rumors as one of the guys that was there one time. And, we'll talk more about you guys having a vocalist a bit later. But for right now, though, you as a band, or at least you personally, what is it that you get out of instrumental music that you feel that you don't get out of music that has vocals?
Sure. So, man, that's a great question to start things off. I guess one thing I really like about instrumental music is that it's totally open to your interpretation. Well, all art is really, but instrumental music, I feel like there's not somebody kind of feeding you ideas. You can just kind of be where you're at and let the music influence, your own thoughts and feelings. I almost feel like it's more of a two-way street. Like you're communicating with the song and the song's communicating back to you versus just like taking in more information. And then also, I'd be remiss to say, like, just as a drummer, right, whenever you're playing with the vocalist, your entire job is to support the vocalist. And whenever you play instrumental music, you can just like not worry about stepping on any toes and overplay everything and play loud. It's a lot of fun. So
no, I give you that. I know, but I've done with When the Sky Sleeps. I sometimes feel a little bit freer on drums because you don't have to, and many bands have done it without needing to, but for the most part, you sometimes have to be in that pocket to help the drums not, or at least to help the vocals not feel all like, what do I do here? Right.
Yeah. And again, that idea that I really try whenever I am playing with the vocalist to, I'm more of like in a service role, like whatever they think the song is going to be, artistically or in terms of subject matter, that's what I'll try to get on the same wavelength as them and tailor my playing to. But, with Collective Dreams, it's just, free for all, kind of do whatever, which I really enjoy.
So with Collective Dreams, having been around for about 10 plus years, going back as far as the MySpace days when we were promoting heavy on there. Do you remember y'all's first show and how that went?
Man, so, dude, I don't know if I do remember the first Collective Dreams show. Because we played in high school, we played in a band together that was kind of like, your stereotypical kind of crappy high school metal band, but I'm trying to think the first Collective Dreams show. I don't even know, dude. It might have been with Vtude at this place called The Venue. There was one of those like pay to play, like sell tickets thing called Guerrilla Productions that we used to do some shows.
I remember them. Yeah, I remember them.
I remember the first good show that we played. Carlos Ortiz was singing for the band at the time. This was probably in 2010. And he had kind of been in the scene, and we were from out in Castroville, so we weren't really like in the San Antonio scene or whatever. And he got us hooked up on a Blakey gig at the White Rabbit. And, there's a bunch of people there, and, we were on cloud nine.
So speaking to that, the fact that you can't even really remember that first show, most bands, regardless of their success level, don't really have a run that lasts as long as y'all. So what's been the drive that's kept y'all playing as Collective Dreams this consistently for, I think it's about 13 plus years now you've been using that name?
Yeah. No, it's been 2009 was when the first demos got cut and the MySpace went up, like you said, and everything. But I joke all the time that I've tried to quit probably 2 or 3 times and just haven't been able to. So really what it is, man, is I love the music and I love the guys, and I know they feel the same way. We're best friends outside of music. We all like playing. So, with Collective Dreams, we're just hanging out, making music. We should probably be a little bit more business oriented than we are. And I'm sure like most bands, there's sometimes where we're like really on top of everything and sometimes we're not. So it's been a journey though, man. I'm definitely grateful to Caleb and Albert and Danny, and yeah, man, just gonna keep playing for as long as we can. I don't see any end in sight.
See, that's beautiful, man. Now, considering y'all have been around for so long, and like you mentioned, Ortiz and Mikey, you've had through some various members, and you yourself doing a bunch of various projects in that time, did you find that your days with the Medina Valley High football program helped you with being in a band in the sense of what you learned about teamwork and working with others to a unified goal?
Dude, that's awesome. That's like Nardwar level. Temporary Animation Podcast, folks. It's coming in hot. Yeah, dude. So, and that's actually one, very true. And, I've played football with Caleb, and that might be one of the reasons why it's lasted so long and why it's such a special thing. Cause and I know that, not everybody's super into sports or whatever, but just being on a team, and sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. You have to work with people. Everybody has their own role, and just like that camaraderie, you know what I mean, of being with dudes working for a common goal. It's definitely something real. And my sisters have kids, and so I hear like their parenting philosophies and stuff. And my older sister told me that little girls, and this is broadly speaking, of course, little girls are friends, therefore they do activities together, but on average, boys psychologically do activities together, therefore they are friends, right? So if you're working together on this common goal thing, you're like, oh no, these are my boys. These are the guys I play football with. These are the guys I play music with. So there's definitely a lot of common threads there.
So, I mean, a little bit on that, thinking back to those days, do you still have like that one play you did that you were like, after you got off the field, I was like, yo, did I just get that?
Man, yeah, there's a few, and it's funny, we joke about this stuff because there really is like an Uncle Rico, thing to playing Texas high school ball. And it's like, there's still certain runs I remember. There's certain plays I remember. I definitely remember the plays that I got like injured on. But my favorite play was we were in Poteet, and I had studied film and everything the week before. They lined up in a certain formation to where the receiver was a little bit more inside than he normally is. And I was like, I know that they're going to run an out route here. So like I was playing corner. And so I kind of baited the quarterback into throwing it, and he threw it. And I went over the top of the guy, picked it off. Teammates went crazy. It was, awesome.
So were you interested in college or professional ball? Because I mean, you did go to a D1 school with like TCU, right?
Yeah. So I again, like Uncle Rico, right? Like I was really fast, and then I broke my foot, and then I wasn't fast anymore. So my oldest sister, she went and ran track at Washington and Lee University in Virginia, which is like a D3 school. I wasn't really good enough to go D2 or D1 or anything like that, but at the time I wanted to go possibly play up there with her. But then, yeah, again, it's just, if it wasn't for that injury, man, we're good.
So what was the campus like back like in 11 or 12 when y'all were joining like the Big 12 when that got announced?
Oh, dude, it was insane. So that had a huge impact on that school. So whenever I applied there, I was there from 08 to 12. They accepted, I want to say like 2,500 kids per class, and there was like 10,000 applicants. They never finished outside the top 10 the entire time I was there. So they're top 10 in the FBS every single year, joining the Big 12, had the undefeated season. And then by the time I graduated, their application numbers had more than doubled, really because of the football team, right? Which is crazy. And again, I know people have different feelings about the stuff like that, but the amount of money that the football program generated for that school, you know what I mean? They put up whole new dorms, built new buildings, built new labs. So it was a really, really exciting time to be up there, man. It was awesome. I still root for Jerry Hughes and Marcus Cannon and all that when I see them in the pros.
Always go Frogs, right?
Yeah, yeah. Go Frogs, baby.
So
Yes,
speaking of your
sir.
time with TCU, it seemed like you actually joined at a pretty good time for musicians. How did, if any, the Wesley Gentle Band and Loud, living out a unified dream, help shape you into becoming a more confident and independent musician?
Man, that was there was a couple of bands I was in when I was young. Those really like boot camp, right? So I showed up there um like with my Scenester DGD shirt on and like multicolored spiky belt, you know what I mean? Just like all I cared about was post-hardcore and like metal and jock music really, you know what I mean?
I feel you, yeah.
And Wesley Gentle was like a double major in music theory and vocal performance. He still works for the Fort Worth Bass Hall in some capacity. And then these were all older guys, right? Because as always, whenever you're a drummer, you find yourself, there's not that many drummers out there. So they exposed me to things like, Tom Petty. I had never heard Tom Petty before I joined the Wesley Gentle Band. And so we covered some of those songs, did some different stuff, and also recording with them, getting into a real deal studio for the first time, and the producer being like, bro, this is a indie rock band. Like, you don't need to play double pedal ever.
So and at that, like, it actually even expanded your repertoire as a drummer.
Oh, absolutely. Every project that you play in gives you it's like everything, right? You just kind of learn some new ideas, you learn some new perspectives, and especially like I talked about before, you're in a service role. So just kind of like taking on other people's ideas, and that was maybe when I learned that it was a service role, and it like wasn't all about me hitting the drums as hard as I possibly can at all times. But yeah, man, shout out Wesley and Tyler and Andrew. They're really great guys, man. It was a lot of fun.
And did that turn into the Chief Linus group, or was that just you and Wesley branching out?
Yes. Yeah. So Wesley was like the band leader, right? Andrew and Tyler wind up writing some songs later on. So yeah, the Wesley Gentle Band became Chief Linus.
And I was, if you can remember on it, because I know it was a while ago, what was that farewell show like? What was it, like 10, I think?
Yeah, the farewell show, man, it was, I wish we could have put always like, after I quit these bands, I was like, man, I wish that band was still together. But Wesley was just so booked, like very, very rigorous academic requirements. So we kind of weren't doing as much. And that was also when Collective Dreams started doing more. So it was basically a mutual decision. And, a couple of the other guys were like, yo, because we got offered to book a handful of shows and they didn't work out for scheduling. So like, yeah, let's just do a farewell show, call it quits. But it was a lot of fun, man. The Ridgely Theater to this day is one of my favorite venues that I've ever played. I don't know if they're even still doing stuff up there. I think they are. But yeah, it was a blast, man, for sure.
So
and of course,
go ahead.
I was just gonna say last bit. Of course, you're in college, right? So like all your friends are there. It's a really good time.
That's actually a perfect transition to my next question, which was, did you feel like when Chief Linus was ending, like that was the end of an era, like everything from the safe put of like high school to college is done, and now I'm kind of an independent musician in the circuit, I'm with a band and all this stuff, like this is like a end of a kind of an era from that TCU days?
I mean, like anybody, right? If you are fortunate enough to get to do it whenever you leave Castroville, Texas, which was like 2,500 people at the time, 3A high school, 200 kids in a class, and then you go to the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex that has, I don't know, 8 million people in the metro. You meet people who don't have the same ideas as you. You get to meet different friends. You learn about different type of music. So it was definitely part of a very slow process of maturing that I feel like is still going on,
to this day, which is good. That's what we always want, man. Keep growing and progressing, right?
Yeah,
Now,
absolutely, absolutely. I
so
always
all
try to
those
be a little bit better. If you're not embarrassed about who you were in the past, then you know, I don't know. I'm always just every phase of my life. I'm just like, God, what was I doing?
so hopefully we're not having that conversation about what we're going into right now. So let's talk a little bit about Collective Dreams, right? So as I mentioned earlier, you did have some vocalists, and going into Collective Dreams, you guys have re-released the Passages EP with vocals. Y'all's first full length, y'all had some people on there, Mikey, as well as also another one featured as featured vocalist. So what went into deciding that we want a vocalist, and ultimately why didn't the concept of Collective Dreams with vocals actually last in the long run?
So I was adamant about having vocals. I was leading that charge 100%. I did not want to be in an instrumental band. I was very vocal about that. And, it was a point of contention. But so we burned through, Carlos Ortiz, Mars Wright, who's Honey's son. Some Texas music fans might know him. And then, of course, Michael Christopher, who plays in Rumors and Mike Underwater. All of that, I mean, in maybe 18 months, we went through all three guys, either, us being idiots or some things that happen that aren't, incidents that went on, and it just wound
Creative
up,
differences.
yeah, sure, whatever, and we had takes cut. The producer was finally like, yo, you guys have about three vocalists in here, like, what are we doing? And Albert really was the one that pushed the instrumental idea, and kudos to him for doing that. So I think maybe what it was it's just, and I'm sure being in a band is tough, man. It's like dating 4 or 5 dudes. And so maybe more so than anything, it was just, our little energies had a hard time bringing in another person. So I guess that's what it is.
And in the long run, probably is part of the reason why the band's been able to last since 09.
Yeah, definitely.
So that perfect. That's the speaking of first release in like 09 as the demo. So let's talk about the new single with Alma Lu. So it's a beautiful tribute between the love of grandparents to grandchildren. Now, how did this release compare to the last ones, given the subject matter and the circumstances of the world right now? And also, this is like the longest gap that y'all have had since the release.
Yes, and I'm absolutely ashamed of that. And I know all the guys are as well. But so we tracked Alma Lu in 2018. Right, which was a year after the Evergreen Sessions release. And then I really think we just got too into our own head about the mixes. So we tracked it in 2018. It should have been out probably end of 2018, beginning of 2019. Then it's like, oh, we should change this part. We should, I don't know if the tone sounds good here. Then all of a sudden it's 2020. Then it's the pandemic. Then it's 2022, and we have 12 tracks recorded, and we only like one of them. So we put out Alma Lu. Yep. Just couldn't let it drag out anymore. It's the best recording quality, the best tones of all those tracks. We're hoping to re-record them, or at least some of them, but it had just been too long since we put out music. So we wanted to put out that track, and it's definitely a very special track.
I definitely agree, man. It's very beautiful. You can find it on collectivedreams.bandcamp.com, right?
Yes, sir.
Awesome.
On the Bandcamp. Awesome. Everything else is on the Bandcamp too. We decided to just put that one exclusively on Bandcamp. Mm-hmm. And then whenever we do put out the full-length album, which, God willing won't be too long from now, we'll go ahead and throw that up on Spotify and Apple Music and everything else.
And so that's actually perfect now that you mentioned that. Spotify, Apple Music, Bandcamp. With this single dropping in January of 2022, but your first official Passages EP dropping in 2010, what's been the biggest differences you've noticed in promoting your music now versus what it was like back then?
I mean, there's so many things. And I know you were around for a lot of this too, right? So used to, Facebook events were awesome. you can get so many people out to shows with Facebook events. Now nobody reads them, and it's a waste of time to even do it, frankly. Also in 2010, I was a student, right? So I had a part-time job, but also I just had this huge social network of all these people, and people who lived in Houston, or people who lived in Austin, or people whose other buddies lived in Corpus. And it was just kind of like easier to network, to be honest. So I still find a lot of value in groundwork. So one of the things we do whenever we play, we hand out posters. We even still hand out CDs. Just cut it as a loss, whatever. We don't make any money on that. We can sell some t-shirts, make some money. We still do flyering. One way that we got a lot of success in Dallas-Fort Worth is me and my buddy Ted Wick. He was kind of, our more or less official manager. We would go flyer light poles and then tape CDs to them. And then people would come and rip down the CD, and maybe 3 people thought that it sucked, but one person was like, this is sick. And again, you're spending that money, right? It's going everywhere, but people are listening to it, to where I'd be, like skating to class, and then you hear Greg's song or something driving by in a car. So the physical stuff, I think, is still important. And definitely social media is a lot more important nowadays as far as promo and reaching an audience and everything like that.
And so you do work for KRTU Indy overnight. And I think one of the things that's probably lost in translation a lot is just how many emails y'all get and how many hours worth of music that y'all probably do get. So with that being said, what advice could you give to aspiring artists that want to submit their music for radio play, but maybe don't know what to say to you in an email, or even how to approach you about, me being a submission?
Certainly. So I must put the distinction that I'm a community host. I volunteer there because I love Texas music. Albert, our guitar player, he works there. He's the operations director. So he gets tons and tons of emails. I just get Texas emails specific to the show. But all that being said, 1, do the minimum required things. If you're sending it to a radio show, make sure your songs are FCC compliant and don't have any cursing or drug references, because that's just a really good way to get yourself thrown out of the pile right away. Take a second to make sure the song is edited if you're submitting to radio. Make sure that the downloads work. There's so many emails that we get to where we click download and it says you have to request access to this file. So make sure that the person can download your track whenever you send it to them. And then also just put the details about when the song is released. Basically, I guess my advice would be to, remove barriers. Make it as easy as possible for somebody going through tons and tons of emails to access your music. Don't make their job more difficult than it is, because that's just an easy way for them to not listen to your music. If you make it easy, they're more likely to listen to it than if you make it difficult.
Awesome, man. Well, it was a pleasure talking to you. As we're closing out here, besides the single that again is out right now exclusively on Bandcamp, hopefully soon, as well as on other streaming platforms, what's currently on the horizon for both Collective Dreams as well as the man, myth, and legend, Mr. Trav himself?
Well, Collective, like I mentioned earlier, we have a lot of music that we're trying to record. So that will be out soon. And when I say a lot of music, I mean, hopefully at least a 10 track. It might even be more than that. We might put it out in chunks. So lots of new music on the way for Collective Dreams. COVID killed the 10-year anniversary tour. I have a lot of out-of-town contacts, and I had been excited for years for the Collective Dreams 10-year anniversary tour in 2020, just going around Texas, and COVID killed that. I'm going to make that happen. It'll be the Collective 12-year anniversary tour or whatever. So new album, anniversary tour going around Texas. And as far as me, man, I'm playing with Elise Road. She's a really cool artist from Belmont and Nashville. She's originally from here in San Antonio. Playing in Collective Dreams, doing stuff on the live and local show on KRTU. Those of you listening, however you're listening, the live and local shows on Thursdays on 91.7 FM. We also have a YouTube channel, live and local KRTU. And
And
really,
I do
I
want to
guess.
make sure on that to let y'all know that you don't have to be a San Antonio resident specifically to hear it. You can stream it online as well. And where can we do that?
Thank you. krtu.org. I appreciate it, Carlos. Good looking out. And as far as me personally, man, I'll just be playing drums, hanging out, listening to Texas music like always, having a blast.
Oh yeah, man. Well, it was a pleasure interviewing you today, sir. I'm so thankful that you were able to help us getting this podcast launched. And also, I wish you much luck and success with Collective Dreams in the futures. And I can't congratulate y'all enough on that single, man.
I really appreciate it, Carlos. And hey, shouts out to you for doing the legwork, for helping out artists. Temporary Animation Records, everybody. They got lots of good bands. They're doing lots of good stuff. They're supporting the Texas music scene, live and local. Check it out. We're doing the same thing. Me and Carlos in this together. And I'll see you at a Collective Dream show or a Temporary Animation Record show.
Oh yeah, awesome. Peace out, everybody. Y'all stay safe. For Carlos here with the Temp podcast. Deuces.